Welcome back. As many of you may know, Congressman Kevin Cramer was recently at a state coalition meeting to stop violence against women and children. He was there with a woman by the name of Melissa Merrick, and with us tonight, live from Bismarck, Congressman Kevin Cramer. We also want to let you know we did ask Melissa to join us tonight with Kevin. She declined our efforts to bring us on the show. So, Kevin, thanks so much for joining us. I want to jump right in, Kevin. Obviously, there's some very serious, in my opinion, allegations against you that Melissa is coming out and saying. I want to bring up the first graph, and I think the one that jumps out to most people. I'm going to read this to you, Kevin, and then find out what the truth is, because that's my objective tonight. And I think this is the wrong one. So I'm going to start here. It says, Melissa Merrick, she's the director of the Spirit Lake Victim Assistance. Cramer then stated that he wanted to wring the tribal council's neck and slam them against the wall. Yes or no, did you make that statement in this meeting?
Chris, I don't believe I made that statement, but I probably used some reference to, similar to the last time I was on your show and you asked me a question about what I thought should be done about children being abused on one of our reservations, on Melissa's reservation, Spirit Lake. And I said to you at that time on live TV, I would like to grab some guys by the lapel and pin them up against the wall, because when it comes to injustices against children, violence against children, I get pretty emotional, quite frankly, and quite passionate. As you probably know, I know that you know, Chris and I have a 6-year-old son who was a victim of violence. We adopted him after he watched his stepfather beat his mother to death. He has roots on one of our reservations. We take this issue very, very seriously. So do I get a little bit outraged? I do. And because Melissa's background as a former victim of violence, I guess once a victim, always a victim, I understand that she took that as sort of a personal attack, perhaps personalized it while I was having a discussion about the constitutionality of the Violence Against Women Act and other things. She personalized it. It's my fault, not hers. I've apologized many times, 3 radio shows, a couple of newspaper interviews, unconditionally for both the statements I made and the words that she thought she heard. I understand that. I really do, and I don't blame her for it. I take full responsibility, but I want to move on.
I want to get some clarity here in a moment, Kevin, but I do want to share with you this. I mean, you're at a meeting about nonviolence, and even just now you use the word outrage.
Right.
I think a lot of women that are victims of abuse can interpret that and go, wait a second, this is a guy that's talking about outrage. We're at a meeting of nonviolence. I'm a woman. I can't protect myself against a lot of men. You're a sitting congressman. Is there a better language you should be using?
There's no question about that, Chris, and I've said that many times. I'll say it again to you.
But Kevin, let me interrupt you. You just now said it tonight. I know you're taking full responsibility, but you just said you've done 3 radio interviews, and here you are tonight using the same language. When is it going to stop, I guess, is my question.
What language are you referring to? Do I get outraged when I hear about children being abused sexually, physically? I probably will always have part of that in me, Chris. That's important to me, protecting children, quite honestly. So that's the appropriate, perhaps, discussion for you and I to have. Perhaps it's appropriate on the floor of the House of Representatives or in a committee. It's not appropriate for me to have it with women who are protecting children. Although I have to say that Ms. Merrick's continuing behavior on this and continuing pattern of not either accepting my apology or worse, sort of protecting the thing that outrages me, causes me a little bit of concern.
Kevin, I got to be frank with you. When I hear the word outrage, and again, everyone's going to have their own interpretation of that word, but I hear the word outrage, and it starts to bring up, I guess, thoughts or pictures of violence to me, and you continue to use that word, which obviously is your prerogative, but it just seems a little bit strong for what we're talking about here.
Okay, so if I say passion, I'm passionate about when men hurt children, hurt women, I get passionate about trying to stop that. If that's a better term, I'll use that term. It doesn't change the reality, though, that this is about protecting children, Chris. That's what I'm about, protecting children and innocent women.
But I think that's what they're saying is, hey, is outrage the solution to stopping that violence? And I think many people would say no. I want to move on to this, Kevin, because in her statement, Melissa Merrick's statement, she says, I stand by every word of it. So clearly, someone's not telling the truth here. You just said, Chris, I didn't say those things about grabbing somebody by the neck. She says, I stand by every word of it. Who's not telling the truth, Kevin, you or her?
Chris, I didn't record the meeting. I don't know if anybody did. I don't recall exactly every word. That's why I'm not going to stand here and say that's exactly what I said. But what I have admitted to is that whatever the language was, whatever she heard, whether I said it or didn't say it, is my responsibility as a member of Congress. I used inappropriate words in describing my concern for children and the fact that they're not protected on one of our reservations. That said, I've had a lot of people from that reservation and other reservations contact me to say, let's move on, let's see what we can do about protecting children. This isn't about a race of people, Chris. This is about protecting children and women. That's what I'm about. That's what I'm passionate about. That's why, by the way, Chris, that's why I voted for the Violence Against Women Act. Not only did I vote for it, I spoke in favor of it on the floor of the House of Representatives. Not only did I speak in favor of it on the floor, first I spoke in favor of it in the Republican conference when there were no TV cameras paying attention. So I'm getting a little bit tired of being demonized as somebody who doesn't support protection of women and children when I, as a part of a very small minority of Republicans, actually supported the legislation that I'm now being accused of not supporting.
Well, I will get to that in a moment.
Principles, at least, I'm being accused of not
And
supporting.
I do want to share some with you. I did speak with Janelle Moose today. She is the executive director at the North Dakota Council of Abused Women. She was in this meeting with you. She was there with Melissa the whole time. And I said, hey, did Kevin use these words specifically? She said, Chris, not those words specifically. So again, hopefully Melissa's going to come out and say, you know what, maybe I did misspeak, because Janelle did not back her up either. But I do want to move on to this, because what Janelle also said is, Chris,
but Chris, I want to be, but Chris, listen, let's give her a little bit of slack here too, because she was a victim of violence herself. So I don't expect her to do a lot. We just need to move forward.
Well, obviously, you've gone through a lot of media coverage because of these statements, and if they're inaccurate, that's the whole point of this interview is to get to the truth. And unfortunately, Melissa wouldn't be with us tonight. But I want to move on to this, because one of the things that Janelle did mention is that, Chris, what happened in this conversation with Kevin has became very constitutionally driven. Him being concerned about due process with the Violence Against Women Act. Looking back on it now, do you wish that you wouldn't have voted for the Violence Against Women Act and stuck to your constitutional conservative principles?
Well, I don't, Chris, because as I said on the floor of the House of Representatives, I'm voting for VAWA because it's personal to me, because of my personal experience, because we need to get the resources, the laws streamlined to allow protection of women. We need to get the resources to the crisis centers. We need to empower victims to become victors. We need to get the resources to the various prosecutors and law enforcement so that we can protect women. Remember, at the end of the day, what we want is to stop violence, not just protect women, but stop violence altogether, not just go after the perpetrator. So I still support that principle. That's why I supported an amendment when it didn't pass. The best bill I had in front of me, the only bill I had in front of me was this one. Now I want to work to improve it, and I think there are a lot of people that are willing to help me do that.
Kevin, I want to share one more graphic with you. I had a chance today to visit with a former tribal court judge, and we can bring this graphic up, please. I just want to get your comments on it. We all know about Kind-Hearted Woman, the documentary that's playing on PBS. Again, you'll see part 2 tonight. Maybe we don't have that graphic, but this is what Molly McDonald said, a former tribal judge. In my opinion, I believe the statements made by Kevin Cramer, as they were quoted by Melissa Merrick, are correct. If our own Native people cannot get a fair trial in Spirit Lake Tribal Court, how could a white person possibly get one? The appeals process set in place right now is illegal because it was not approved by the people as required in our tribal constitution. I appreciate Mr. Cramer showing, watch this key word she just says, Kevin, passion for our tribe's issues. No one else seems to be listening. Quickly, Kevin, your comments on that statement.
Well, I appreciate that statement very much, but let's be clear about something. I didn't accuse the tribe of being, dysfunctional, as Ms. Merrick said and whatnot. I appreciate the judge's position on this. My position, my argument, is a constitutional argument. I'm not determining the guilt or innocence of anybody. I'm just talking about the 4th and 5th Amendments, habeas corpus rights, appeal rights, and innocent until proven guilty is a hallmark of our judicial system. So again, we seem to be having a discussion at 2 different levels, but I appreciate what the judge is saying, and I think she makes a relevant point. The problem is there are all kinds of different tribes, and they're all, somewhat autonomous one from the other. They all have different constitutions, different tribal courts, different levels of professionalism. I'm not judging any of them. I'm just saying what we can't do is compromise the constitutional rights of American citizens in this process. But first and foremost, let's protect children and women from violence.
Kevin, always great to have you on. We appreciate your time. We will, I know, have you on again in the near future. Please stay with us. When we come back, we're going to get to your feedback, always the best part of the show, in my opinion. And as always, join us and let us know your feedback and thoughts. Go to our website, 630pov.com.